Picture this. It's the middle of the Great Depression, or maybe the tough years after World War II. The pantry shelves aren't exactly overflowing, and every penny counts. Yet somehow, Grandma still manages to put a warm, hearty plate on the table every night. No takeout, no fancy gadgets, just pure ingenuity, simple ingredients, and the kind of cooking skills that could turn scraps into feasts. Today, we're stepping back in time to rediscover 25 forgotten poor man meals that kept our grandparents going through some of the hardest times in history. And, let me tell you, these meals weren't just about survival. They were packed with flavor, love, and a sense of pride that's almost lost in today's fast-paced world. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on the bell so you never miss another trip down memory lane. We've got plenty more nostalgic, budget-friendly recipes coming your way. Bread soup. Stale bread never went to waste. Day-old or even week-old bread formed the foundation of this filling soup. Chunks of hard bread soaked in hot water or thin broth until soft, then seasoned with whatever was on hand. Maybe garlic, salt, pepper, or dried herbs from the garden. A drizzle of olive oil for Italian families, or lard for others, added necessary calories. The soup filled stomachs on nights when the pantry was nearly bare, teaching children that even the simplest ingredients could become a meal with enough creativity. Immigrant families often brought this tradition from their homelands, with each culture having its own variation. Papa al pomodoro in Italian households, or sopa de ajo in Spanish homes. The transformation of hard, seemingly inedible bread into something warm and comforting represented the resilience of those who refused to be defeated by poverty. Women would trade secret ingredients between neighbors, creating community bonds through shared survival techniques that crossed cultural boundaries. Egg gravy. When a family had chickens, eggs became precious protein sources. Egg gravy stretched 1 or 2 eggs to feed several mouths. Fat heated in a pan saved bacon grease or lard. Flour stirred in to make a roux. Then water or milk added to create a gravy. Eggs beaten and stirred into the hot, but not boiling gravy, cooked in threads throughout, carrying egg flavor through the entire dish. Poured over biscuits or bread, the meal satisfied hunger, while making minimal ingredients feed maximum people. Cabbage and noodles. Cabbage stored well through winter months, making it valuable when fresh produce wasn't available. Chopped cabbage sautéed until soft, then mixed with cooked egg noodles and seasoned with salt, pepper, and perhaps caraway seeds. The dish, sometimes called haluski in Eastern European households, filled bellies with minimal expense. The slightly sweet flavor of cooked cabbage paired with the satisfying chew of noodles created comfort in difficult times. The lingering smell of cabbage cooking became associated with tenement buildings and working-class neighborhoods, a sensory marker of economic status that some found embarrassing, but others embraced with pride. Homemade noodles often replaced store-bought when flour was available, but money was not. The afternoon spent rolling and cutting dough, becoming productive family time. The humble dish connected generations of immigrants to their homelands while adapting to American ingredients and circumstances, becoming a cultural bridge during difficult transitions. Dandelion salad. Food sometimes grew wild right in the backyard. Young dandelion greens, harvested before the flowers appeared, provided vital nutrients when fresh vegetables were unaffordable. The slightly bitter greens were washed thoroughly, then dressed with a simple mixture of vinegar, sugar, and bacon grease, if available. Some families added hard-boiled eggs from their backyard chickens. This cost-nothing meal delivered essential vitamins during spring when winter stores had dwindled and garden vegetables weren't yet ready. Children were sent out with brown paper bags to collect the tender young leaves, learning to identify the plants and select the best ones. The ritual of washing the greens became a family affair, with multiple rinses needed to remove all traces of dirt and grit. Those who grew up eating wild greens often developed a lifelong taste for bitter flavors, preferring dandelion salad to store-bought lettuce even when they could afford it later in life. Ketchup sandwiches. When cupboards were nearly bare, bread and ketchup became lunch. 2 slices of bread, spread with ketchup, sometimes a sprinkle of sugar added if available, made a sandwich that quieted hunger pangs. Children didn't realize their parents often went without, so they could have this simple meal. The tangy sweetness of ketchup made the plain bread more exciting for young eaters, who didn't understand the financial struggles behind such a basic offering. Restaurants would sometimes provide free ketchup packets, which parents would collect and save for these emergency meals at home. Garbage soup. Despite its unappetizing name, garbage soup represented remarkable resourcefulness. Nothing edible entered the actual garbage. Instead, vegetable peels, meat bones, wilted greens, and aging root vegetables simmered together in water with salt and pepper. The soup pot lived on the back of the stove, with new additions joining the broth daily. Potato water, the liquid from cooking pasta, even the juice from canned vegetables enriched the ever-changing meal. Each night, the family ate whatever version existed, knowing tomorrow's might taste completely different. Thrifty cooks strained the finished broth through cheesecloth for clarity. The resulting soup, with perhaps a handful of rice or barley added for substance, provided vitamins and flavor when fresh food was unavailable. One Depression-era cookbook called it perpetual soup, a gentler name for survival in liquid form. Vinegar pie. When fruit became too expensive or out of season, vinegar provided the tangy flavor normally supplied by lemons or apples. This desperation dessert combined vinegar, sugar, eggs, butter, and spices to create a sweet tart filling inside a simple crust. The chemical reaction between vinegar and baking soda created a light texture similar to more expensive fruit pies. Cinnamon and nutmeg disguised the vinegar's harshness, while sugar transformed it into an almost lemon-like brightness. Church socials during hard times featured rows of these golden pies alongside the more traditional apple and cherry versions. They sold for pennies less, feeding families with dignity when pride prevented accepting charity. Egg drop soup. When chickens reduced their laying during winter months, each egg became precious. Egg drop soup stretched a single egg into a meal for four by slowly pouring beaten egg into hot broth, creating delicate ribbons that suggested abundance. The broth itself came from whatever was available: chicken feet and back simmered with an onion perhaps, or simply bouillon cubes dissolved in water when times were harnessed. A handful of green onions added color and vitamins if the garden offered them. Chinese immigrants brought this technique to America, where it merged with Depression-era thrift. The simple combination of hot liquid and beaten egg created protein-rich meals requiring minimal ingredients. Biscuits and gravy. Southern kitchens turned flour, lard, and milk into filling meals through the magic of biscuits and gravy. The biscuits required minimal ingredients: flour, lard or bacon grease, salt, and a leavening agent. The gravy transformed a spoonful of grease and flour into creamy sauce that covered the plate. During harder times, the gravy contained little meat, perhaps crumbled bits of salt pork or the last pieces of sausage. The flavor came instead from black pepper, which grew plentiful and cheap after the spice trade expanded. Liberal shakes of pepper turned white gravy gray-speckled and gave the impression of more meat than actually existed. Fried bologna. When steak became an impossible dream, families turned to bologna, a mixture of ground meat scraps pressed into neat circles. Frying transformed this humble lunch meat into something that sizzled and smelled like proper cooking. The preparation couldn't be simpler. Cut a single slice into the edge to prevent curling, then fry until the edges crisped and the center bubbled. Served on white bread with mustard, perhaps with a slice of government cheese, it became a hot sandwich that felt like restaurant food. During the Depression and continuing through the 1970s recession, fried bologna became dinner when paychecks stretched too thin for conventional cuts of meat. Children often preferred it to healthier options, never realizing their parents served it from necessity rather than choice. The distinctive bologna bubble that formed during cooking delighted young eaters who poked it with forks. Monte Cristo sandwich. The Monte Cristo sandwich is a classic American dish that gained popularity in the mid-20th century. It's an egg-dipped or batter-dipped ham and cheese sandwich that is pan or deep-fried, often considered a variation of the French croque monsieur. The sandwich can be savory or a mix of savory and sweet, sometimes covered in powdered sugar and served with maple syrup or preserves. Its rise in popularity is partly attributed to being served at Disneyland's Blue Bayou restaurant. Olive loaf sandwiches. Imagine yourself back in the mid-20th century when American lunchboxes featured a new staple, the olive loaf sandwich. This cold cut, blending ground pork, beef, and green olives, quickly became popular for its distinctive flavor. Assembling the sandwich was easy. Layer slices of olive loaf with creamy mayonnaise or tangy mustard, crisp lettuce, and sometimes cheese, all nestled between fresh bread. This simple yet delicious sandwich became a picnic and lunchbox favorite, often enjoyed with potato chips or pickles. It tells the story of how processed meats and cold cuts shaped American lunch culture, offering quick, flavorful, and varied meal options. Over time, the rise of fresh, health-conscious eating habits led to the decline of processed meats. However, the olive loaf sandwich remains a nostalgic reminder of simpler culinary times. Sloppy Joe. Another notable sandwich from that era is the Sloppy Joe, which consists of ground beef, onions, tomato sauce or ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, and other seasonings served on a hamburger bun. The origins of the Sloppy Joe are debated, with some attributing it to a bar owner in Havana, Cuba in 1917, while others trace it back to Sioux City, Iowa in the 1930s. By the 1940s, references to Sloppy Joes as sandwiches became common in the United States. These sandwiches reflect the culinary trends of their times, offering a glimpse into the flavors and preferences that shaped mid-20th century American cuisine. Ravioli sandwiches are an unconventional, playful lunch option that taps into the beloved flavors of Italian cuisine while embracing the convenience of a sandwich. These emerged likely in response to the popularity of canned ravioli introduced by Chef Boyardee in the 1930s. The sandwich involves placing canned ravioli filled with meat or cheese between slices of bread, which can be toasted or grilled to meld the flavors and add a textural contrast to the soft ravioli filling. Known in some places as Italian Sloppy Joes or Ravioli Hero, these sandwiches gained a following among budget-conscious college students and anyone appreciating the melding of comforting Italian flavors with the easy handheld format of a sandwich. Creamed corn sandwich. The creamed corn sandwich is a nostalgic reminder of comfort food from simpler times. This sandwich features creamed corn spread on buttered bread. The creamy sweet corn provides a comforting taste, making it a popular choice during times when ingredients were limited. Spread the creamed corn generously on slices of bread to create a hearty and flavorful sandwich. This dish reflects an era when homemade simplicity was highly valued. The creamed corn sandwich continues to be a comforting option for those who enjoy the flavors of classic American comfort food, offering a taste of a bygone era. Monte Cristo sandwich. The Monte Cristo sandwich is a classic American dish that gained popularity in the mid-20th century. It's an egg-dipped or batter-dipped ham and cheese sandwich that is pan or deep-fried, often considered a variation of the French croque monsieur. The sandwich can be savory or a mix of savory and sweet, sometimes covered in powdered sugar and served with maple syrup or preserves. Its rise in popularity is partly attributed to being served at Disneyland's Blue Bayou restaurant. Macaroni and cheese loaf sandwich. Transport yourself back to mid-20th century America, where comfort food took on a new form. The classic sandwich. Think of slices of macaroni and cheese loaf, a delightful combination of pasta and ham shaped into a loaf-like product. Layered between bread with mustard or mayonnaise, this intriguing dish made its debut in the 1950s, becoming a unique addition to the American sandwich repertoire. Imagine families gathering around tables, savoring this peculiar yet beloved creation. Chips or pickles often accompany this culinary delight, adding an extra layer of flavor. Velveeta fudge. Velveeta fudge is not a myth, but a very real dessert that graced tables across America. The star ingredient is that familiar processed cheese brick found in countless refrigerators. The logic behind this unusual combination? Velveeta is soft, salty, and melts perfectly. When combined with cocoa powder, butter, and powdered sugar, it creates a rich, creamy texture remarkably similar to traditional fudge. Skeptics became believers after tasting it. Once melted and mixed, the cheese's flavor disappears completely, leaving behind deeply chocolatey, ultra-smooth fudge with a subtle, salty edge. During times when fresh dairy was expensive or difficult to store, Velveeta offered a practical alternative that didn't require refrigeration until after preparation. This recipe became a cherished family secret, passed down through generations with the caveat, just try it before you judge it. The unexpected marriage of processed cheese and chocolate demonstrates the creative problem-solving that characterized mid-century American cooking, finding new uses for everyday ingredients to create something surprisingly delicious. Sardine sandwich. The sandwich that cleared a 3-foot radius around you. Tinned sardines mashed with mayonnaise on white bread, sometimes with a squeeze of lemon if your parents were fancy. The smell announced your lunch before you did. Kids would dramatically hold their noses, but secretly, some were jealous of your sophisticated palate. The oily fish would soak into the bread, making the whole thing a soft, savory experience that you either loved or hated. There was an unspoken hierarchy to sardine sandwiches. The basic version had just the fish and mayo. The intermediate version included finely diced onions or celery for texture, and the elite version featured capers or chopped pickles that added briny pops of flavor. The sardine sandwich revealed your family's economic philosophy. Some saw it as a protein-packed, affordable option, while others viewed it as a delicacy worth the premium price of imported fish. The best versions had the sardines mashed just enough to create a spread while leaving some recognizable pieces for textural interest. By mid-morning, the sandwich would have fully matured, with the flavors melting together and the oils penetrating the bread to create a unified culinary experience. Cheese and jelly sandwich. The poor man's cheesecake. Cream cheese spread thick on white bread with a layer of grape jelly. The sweet and tangy combination was a revelation before fancy flavor combinations were cool. It was like having dessert for lunch, and sometimes the cream cheese would melt just enough to mix with the jelly, creating marble swirls that looked as good as they tasted. The bread would get a little soggy, but that was part of the charm. Opening your lunchbox to find this sandwich meant your parent had taken extra time that morning, as spreading cold cream cheese on soft bread required patience and finesse. If spread too roughly, the bread would tear, resulting in a patchwork sandwich that tasted the same but lost aesthetic points. Different jelly flavors created different experiences. Grape was classic and assertive. Strawberry added a hint of sophistication, and the rare exotic flavors like apricot or blackberry meant your family had recently visited a farmer's market or fancy hat. The sandwich's appearance would transform throughout the morning. By lunchtime, the jelly would partially absorb into both the cream cheese and bread, creating a graduated color effect that was visually striking. In winter months, the cold classroom would keep the cream cheese firm, while in warmer seasons, it would develop a soft, almost frosting-like consistency. Egg drop soup. Egg drop soup appears in countless vintage cookbooks as a kindless comfort dish once prepared in nearly every American kitchen. This recipe, originally tucked between yellowed pages of grandmother's handwritten collections, represents culinary wisdom nearly lost to time. In those dog-eared cookbooks from generations past, instructions detailed how to transform humble ingredients into something remarkable by whisking eggs into a simmering broth, creating silky ribbons that danced through the golden liquid. The instructions were charmingly imprecise. A pot of broth heated until steam rises, with eggs added in a thin stream, while stirring gently to achieve the characteristic delicate texture. The result was a soup that combined the rustic simplicity of farm-fresh eggs with carefully crafted broths that simmered for hours. Often, handwritten notes and margins suggested additions. These 25 forgotten poor man meals tell a story far bigger than just food. They're about resilience, resourcefulness, and the ability to make something wonderful out of almost nothing. Our grandparents didn't have convenience stores on every corner or takeout apps at their fingertips. They had gardens, scraps, and the determining. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more nostalgic recipes and frugal living tips. And let me know in the comments, which of these meals have you tried, and which ones are you excited to bring back to your kitchen? Until next time, keep cooking with love and a little old-fashioned ingenuity.